Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from RAU'S Study Circle. Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an analysis of the Hindu newspaper from UPSC perspective. Today we will take up the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 20th December 2020. And the articles that we will discuss today are displayed on your screen. Now before starting today's discussion, you should take up this self-assessment test, and the answers for this test are available at the end of this video. So let us start with the first article. Now this article on page number 1 talks about the Sentinelese tribe of Andaman Islands. And in this regard, the Anthropological Survey of India has said that any exploitation of the North Sentinel Island of Andamans for commercial or strategic gains would spell the death knell of its occupants, the Sentinelese tribes. And it has described the Sentinelese tribes as a most secluded, particularly vulnerable tribal group of India, and they reside in complete isolation on this island. And accordingly, the Anthropological Survey of India in a policy document has warned that their habitat should not be endangered by any kind of commercial activity or strategic plan. So in this article, we will look at the Sentinelese tribes, their location, and also other important tribes of the Andaman and Nicobar Island from our preliminary examination point of view. Further, we will look at the question that was asked in 2019 related to the issue of Sentinelese tribe. And you might be knowing that an American national was killed when he tried to interfere with these Sentinelese tribes. So these tribes are known as hostile tribes and are recognized as particularly vulnerable tribal groups. So while solving that question, we will also look at some key facts related to particularly vulnerable tribal groups and also some important facts related to other tribes of India. So first let us look at the Sentinelese tribes. Now regarding these Sentinelese tribes, they live in isolation in the North Sentinel Island of Andaman and Nicobar, and you can see the location of this North Sentinel Island, and it is located in the Andaman Islands. So this can be a very important fact for us from the preliminary examination point of view. Further, these are one of the last tribes that remain disconnected with the outside world, and their population is estimated to be around 40 to 500. However, the 2011 census of Indian population records only 15 Sentinelese on the island, and they include 12 males and 3 females. So this means that they are very less in population. So here comes the important fact that what are the other tribes of Andaman and Nicobar Island. So currently there are 6 notified scheduled tribes in the Andaman and Nicobar Island by the Government of India. And out of these 6 notified scheduled tribes, except the Nicobarese tribes, the other 5 have been recognized as particularly vulnerable tribal groups. So which are these tribes? So they include the Great Andamanis, the Jarawas, the Sentinelese, the Onge, and the Shompan. So these can also be very important facts for us from the preliminary examination point of view, and particularly the location of the Sentinel tribes in the North Sentinel Island in Andaman Islands. Now if you look at the question that was asked in the year 2019 in the preliminary examination, this was asked related to the particularly vulnerable tribal groups. And the issue of PVTGs was in news in that year because of the killing of the American national by the Sentinelese tribes in the Andaman Islands. So this question read, the PVTGs reside in 18 states and 1 union territory. Second is that a stagnant or declining population is one of the criteria for determining the PVTG status. Third is that there are 95 PVTGs officially notified in the country so far. And fourth statement is that the Irular and the Konda Reddy tribes are included in the list of PVTGs. Now if you had gone through the current affairs of that year, you might have easily known that the Andaman Islands are the only islands where the PVTGs are residing. And accordingly, you could have ascertained that the first statement given here was correct. Secondly, a stagnant or declining population is also a logical criteria which is used for determining the PVTGs. And this is the criteria which is also used by the Government of India while declaring any tribe as a particularly vulnerable tribal group. And this is because these PVTGs are very isolated. Further, the key to solving this question was the third statement that is given here. And it reads that there are 95 PVTGs officially notified in the country so far, And this number was tweaked by the UPSC because there are only 75 PVTGs that have been notified in the country till date. And accordingly, this third statement becomes incorrect. So by this, you could have easily eliminated the options A, B, and D. And the correct answer that comes out is C, that is 1, 2, and 4. So clearly, while solving such kind of questions, you need to apply the knowledge that you acquire while reading, and you should be good at eliminating the options by the application of your knowledge. And you might be knowing that we are already publishing videos related to the prelims test series in which we are focusing on the key tricks on solving the questions and how to approach the questions in the examination. And also what are the important things that we are keeping in mind while designing the prelims test series questions. So do go through those videos. They will help you a lot along with the daily news simplified videos. So if you look at the description of the PVTGs, you will find that there are 75 PVTGs notified as on date in the country. And the criteria followed for the determination of these PVTGs include a pre-agricultural level of technology, a stagnant or declining population, extremely low literacy, and a subsistence level economy. And these PVTGs are the scheduled tribes which reside in the 18 states and Union Territory of Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So after this, let us look at important facts related to other tribes of India. So presently there are about 500 tribes that have been notified under the Article 342 of the Constitution of India. So clearly this becomes an important fact that the scheduled tribes are recognized under the or notified under the Article 342 of the Indian Constitution. Now besides this, another important fact that comes up is that the largest number of tribal communities reside in the state of Odisha. And the main concentration of tribal population is in central India and the northeastern states of India. However, the tribal population is found in almost all states of India and union territories except these four, that is the Haryana, Punjab, Delhi, Pondicherry and Chandigarh. So they do not have any population of tribals in India. And this again becomes a very important fact which can be asked in your preliminary examination. Then predominantly tribal populated states which have tribal population of more than 50% of their total population include the Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, the Union Territories of Dadra and Nagar Haveli and Lakshadweep. So we see that these four states of the northeastern India have tribal population which is more than 50% of the total population of these states. Further, we have read that the PVTGs are only found in one union territory, that is Andaman and Nicobar Island. However, the other two union territories where tribal population is found include the Dadra and Nagar Haveli and the Lakshadweep Islands. So this is again a very important fact for us from the preliminary examination point of view. So clearly we have looked at some important aspects of the Sentinelese tribes and also PVTGs and some facts related to the tribal population of India. With this, let's take up the next news article now. Now, this article on page number 12 talks about the issue of postal voting rights for the non-resident Indians. And in this regard, the Election Commission of India has written to the Law Ministry and has proposed to extend the facility of postal ballots to eligible overseas non-resident Indians for the upcoming assembly elections in Assam, Kerala, Puducherry, Tamil Nadu and West Bengal. And the ECI has proposed that such postal ballots will be sent to the NRIs electronically, and they will send these ballots after choosing their candidates via post. That is, it will be a one-way electronic voting. Now, service voters are generally those who are the members of armed forces or who are employed under the government of India in a post outside India. So some of the details of the service voters will be provided in the PDF that is attached in the description box below. So in this regard, let us look at the key aspects of NRI voting and how it has evolved through the years, and what is the new proposal and what are the likely challenges that are to be faced if such kind of a move is implemented by the Election Commission of India. And they can be used in writing answers in General Studies paper 2 in the topic Constitution and Polity. So first, let us look at the way in which the voting for the citizens who are staying abroad has evolved. So prior to 2010, an Indian citizen who was an eligible voter and was residing abroad for more than 6 months was not allowed to vote. So this was the condition prior to 2010. However, after 2010, the Representation of People Act 1950 was amended. And this amendment allowed the NRIs who had stayed abroad beyond 6 months to vote, but only in person at the polling station where they have been enrolled as an overseas elector, which means that although the people who have resided outside India for more than 6 months were allowed to vote, but they had to be physically present at the polling stations to vote. However, despite such a relaxation, the NRI voters did not turn up in large numbers. So, what were the issues and why did the NRI voters not turn in large numbers in the Indian elections? So, let us look at that. Now, one of the issues with such kind of move was that the new amendment allowed only such citizens to vote in person at the polling booth. That means they had to be physically present at the polling stations to vote in the Indian elections, and they were not allowed to vote through the postal ballots or through the electronic methods. Now, what did this is that it discouraged the eligible voters from exercising their mandate due to cost of travel. So, in this regard, the government of India in the year 2017 tried to move this restriction of being physically present at the polling station. And the proposed amendment provided for overseas voters to be able to appoint a proxy to cast their votes on their behalf, which means that the person who is residing outside India can appoint a person to vote on his behalf. However, this bill lapsed with the dissolution of 16th Lok Sabha. And in this regard, the Election Commission of India has now come up with a new solution. So it has approached the government of India to amend the Representation of People Act to permit the NRIs to vote via postal ballots in a way similar to the method that is already being used by the service voters, that is through the electronically transmitted postal ballot system. And the ECI is proposing such a move because such a method had allowed for greater turnout among the service voters in the 2019 Lok Sabha election. Now, there are two ways in which the electronic voting can be done. First is the one-way electronic voting, and second is the two-way electronic voting. So, in the one-way electronic voting, the postal ballots are sent electronically, and the voters download such electronically sent postal ballots and cast their vote and send the vote through the postal services. And then such a vote is received by the returning officer through the postal services, which means that the electronic transfer of postal ballot is only one way. However, in a two-way electronic system, the vote can be cast electronically as well. That means there is no need of sending the downloaded postal ballot through the postal service. And such a move will allow the voters to cast their votes electronically through a secure encrypted system, and the same will reach the designated returning officer for counting. So these are the two ways in which electronic voting can be introduced. Now, this one-way electronic voting is already being used for the service voters or the members of armed forces and the Indians who are posted outside India. However, there are certain limitations in the implementation of such a move, and the first is that the technology is not ready as of now and it needs stringent testing because such kind of voting is vulnerable to cyber security issues. Further changes will have to be made in the election laws, that is Representation of People Act, to facilitate the two-way electronic voting. And in order to secure and ascertain the correct identity of the NRI voters, their Aadhaar cards will have to be linked with the voter IDs. And also, technology will have to be integrated with the Election Registration Officer Network or the ERO network to reflect vote casted by the person even from remote or distant places. So these are some of the challenges that are likely to be faced. So what is the present situation or condition of the NRI voters? So such NRI voters can presently vote in India in the registered constituency only if they are physically present, which means that they cannot vote electronically or by the means of postal ballot, or the proxy voting is also not allowed. However, now the Election Commission of India has proposed that it wants to introduce the electronic voting or the postal ballot voting for the non-resident Indians. And prior to 2010, those NRIs were not allowed to vote who had stayed outside India for more than 6 months. So these have been the steps in the evolution of voting rights for the non-resident Indians. So this is a news in transition, and only if the proposal of the Election Commission of India is accepted by the Government of India, changes will have to be made in the election laws. With this, let's take up the next news article now. Now, this article on page number 13 is related to the S-400 missile defense system of the Russia. Now, this particular S-400 missile defense system has been in news for past 2 years, and that is because India is in the process of acquiring this S-400 missile defense system. Now, recently what happened is that the United States of America has decided to impose sanctions on Turkey over its procurement of the S-400 Triumph long-range air defense system from Russia. Now, these sanctions have been imposed under the United States of America's Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act, or the CAATSA Act. And in October 2018, India had signed a deal with Russia for 5 S-400 Triumph missile defense systems to be installed in India. However, United States of America has not imposed sanctions on India under its CAATSA law. Now, this CAATSA law of America, which is used for imposing sanctions on those countries which are getting into defense deals with Russia and Iran, has already been discussed in the DNS of 16th December. So in this discussion, we will look at some key aspects of the S-400 Triumph missile defense system from our preliminary examination point of view, because it is an event of national as well as international importance. Now, first thing that you need to learn about the S-400 Triumph long-range air defense system is that it has been built by or developed by Russia. And it is the most advanced long-range surface-to-air missile defense system. Now, why is it most advanced? So it is advanced because it is a layered defense system and it can intercept all types of aerial targets, and these include the aircrafts, unmanned aerial vehicles, ballistic and cruise missiles up to a range of 400 kilometers and at an altitude of up to 30 kilometers. And this is what makes the S-400 missile defense system important for India. Further, it can track 100 airborne targets, and this can include the super fighters such as the American-built F-35 and engage 6 of them simultaneously. Now, this S-400 defense system has already been deployed in Syria in 2015 to guard Russian and Syrian naval and air assets. Further, Russia has also stationed S-400 units in the Crimean Peninsula, which it had conquered recently. And the present situation is that India has already signed a deal back in 2018 with Russia for procurement of such air defense system. However, Turkey, which has procured this system from Russia, is facing sanctions from United States of America under its CAATSA law, which is known as Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act. Now, this CAATSA Act has been discussed in detail in the Daily News Simplified of 16 December 2020 by Basavasar. So do go through the important aspects of the CAATSA Act, which can be important for us from preliminary as well as mains examination point of view. Now, we have been publishing videos related to the prelims test series regularly. And in the current affairs of July month back in 2019, we had discussed a question related to the S-400 missile defense system. And that system was designed based on the previous year questions that have been asked by the UPSC. So let us revise from that video the question related to the S-400 defense system and how it becomes important because of the previous year questions that have already been asked from this topic. So let us look at that. Now, the third question is based on the question that was asked in the prelims of 2018. And in the year 2018, the question read, what is terminal high altitude area defense, that is THAAD, sometimes seen in the news? Now, regarding THAAD system, it should be noted that it was in news in that year because the United States of America had deployed this anti-missile system in the Korean Peninsula because of increasing tensions between North Korea and South Korea. And here the correct answer was C, that is, it is an American anti-missile system. Now, if you look at the options that were given by the UPSC in this question, the first is that it is an Israeli radar system. Second is that it is India's indigenous anti-missile program. And the fourth option is that it is a defense collaboration between Japan and South Korea. Now, anti-missile programs are generally in news, and hence the option was designed as it might be an India's indigenous anti-missile program. Further, the Israel-Palestine conflict is almost in news every year, and that is why this option was also designed. And this question has been designed based on the S-400 Triumph, sometimes seen in the news. So the options are that it is an indigenous missile defense system developed by the Defense Research Development Organization. Second is that it is the anti-satellite system recently tested by India. Third is that it is a defense collaboration between United States of America and India. And the fourth option is that it is an advanced long-range air defense missile system developed by Russia. Now, most of the options that have been designed in this question are based on the recent happenings only. For example, the first option is that it is an indigenous missile defense system, and this has been designed because India is trying to acquire a missile defense system. However, it is not an indigenous missile defense system. Now, the second option is that it is the anti-satellite system recently tested by India. And we know that recently India had tested the anti-satellite system under its Mission Shakti. Now, although this statement is correct in itself, however, it is wrong in the context of the question, and hence the option B and A are incorrect. Further, various defense agreements between India and the United States of America have also been in news in this year. However, they are not related to this term S-400 Triumph, and hence the C option is also correct. So the correct answer here is that it is an advanced long-range air defense missile system which has been developed by Russia. And in this context, India is trying to acquire this missile defense system which has been developed by the Russia. However, this move of India has been opposed by the United States of America. And the US has cautioned India that the S-400 deal could attract sanctions under the Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act or the CAATSA Act. And this act of America restricts any defense purchases by any country from Russia, Iran, or North Korea. And that is why this S-400 Triumph missile system, which India was trying to acquire from Russia, was in news because the United States of America had cautioned that India will face sanctions if this defense deal goes through. So while answering such questions, you should be careful that you do not fall for other options which seem correct in the first place, however, are not related to the actual requirement of the question. And with this, let's take up the next question now. Now, this article on page number 11 is related to a common Himalayan herb which has now become endangered because of overexploitation. So, in this regard, let us learn about this common Himalayan herb and how a question can be asked in your preliminary examination related to this topic. Now, in the prelims of 2019, a question was asked. Recently, there was a growing awareness in our country about the importance of Himalayan nettle because it is found to be a sustainable source of. Now, this Himalayan nettle had become important because it was found to be a sustainable source of textile fiber and which could have played a key role for the livelihood of remotely based people in the state of Jammu and Kashmir in the Himalayas. So that is why the correct answer here was D, that is textile fiber. So similarly, you can be asked a question related to the Himalayan Trillium. So this Himalayan Trillium is a common herb that is found in Himalayas and it has recently been declared as endangered by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature or the IUCN. Now it has become one of the most traded commercial plants in the Himalayan region because of its high medicinal quality. And it has been used in traditional medicine to cure diseases like dysentery, wounds, skin boils, inflammation, sepsis, as well as menstrual and sexual disorders. Further, it is found in temperate and subalpine zones of Himalayas at an altitude of around 2,400 to 4,000 meters above the sea level. And the existence of this plant has also been traced across India, Bhutan, Nepal, China, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. So in the areas that include the Himalayas as well as the Trans-Himalayas. And in India, it is found only in 4 states. These include Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, Sikkim, and Uttarakhand. So these are a few important facts related to Himalayan Trillium. And this becomes very important because a similar question has already been asked in your prelims examination in the year 2019. With this, let's take up the next news article, which is important for us from preliminary examination point of view. Now, this article on page number 11 is related to the first potential radio signal from Exoplanet. Now, Exoplanet simply means that a planet which is located beyond our solar system. So, this can become important for us from preliminary examination point of view. And let us look at the importance or the significance of such a discovery. So recently, an international team of scientists has collected the first possible radio signal from a planet beyond our solar system. And these radio signals were emanating from an exoplanet system, which is about 51 light years away from our solar system. So this was done using a low frequency array, and it covered the radio emissions burst from the Tau boost star system. Now, this low frequency array or LOFAR is a large radio telescope network which is located in Netherlands. Now, what is important for us from preliminary examination is the significance of this observation. And if you look at this question, it was asked in 2019 and it read, recently scientists observed the merger of giant black holes billions of light years away from the Earth. What is the significance of this observation? So the options that were given were very close. However, the biggest significance of the observation of merger of giant black holes was that it led to the understanding or detection of the gravitational waves. So accordingly, you can be asked the significance of this observation of radio signals from exoplanets. So regarding the significance of such an observation, it is said that observing an exoplanet's magnetic field helps the astronomers decipher a planet's interior and atmospheric properties as well as physics of the star-planet interactions. So basically, it will help the astronomers in learning about the interior as well as the atmospheric properties of the planet and also how that planet is interacting with its parent star. Now we note that Earth's magnetic field protects it from the solar wind dangers and keeps our planet habitable. And accordingly, the magnetic field of Earth-like exoplanets may contribute to their possible habitability by shielding their own atmospheres from solar wind and cosmic rays and protecting the planet from atmospheric loss. Now, what this means is that we already know that the Earth's magnetic field is protecting the Earth from solar flares. And accordingly, if we find that such a magnetic field is being emanated from an exoplanet, this means that that magnetic field might also be saving that particular planet. And accordingly, it increases the possibility of that planet being habitable. So these magnetic fields play an important role in protecting the atmosphere of a planet as it is doing in case of Earth. So accordingly, the scientists are saying that such magnetic field detection might be protecting the atmosphere of the exoplanets as well, and this increases the possibility of finding life on such planets. So this is the significance of this observation, and this can be very important for us from preliminary examination point of view. With this, let's take up the next news article that's important for us from preliminary examination point of view. Now, this news article on page number 13 is related to Boko Haram, which is a terrorist group that is found in Africa. And what is important here is that in which region does the Boko Haram operate? And previously, questions have been asked related to the organizations that are in news or locations that are in news. So accordingly, let us learn some important aspects of this particular news article. So regarding Boko Haram, it simply means Western education is forbidden. And it emerged in 2000s in Nigeria as a small Sunni sect. And it advocated strict implementation and interpretation of the Islamic law. And over the decade, the Boko Haram has spread in different parts of Africa from northeastern Nigeria to neighboring Western African nations like Niger, Chad, Cameroon in Lake Chad Basin. So you can see the location of Nigeria and the neighboring countries and the location where the Islamist terrorist group of Boko Haram is located. And this information can be asked in our preliminary examination in the form of pairs if they are correctly matched or not, or simply in which region is this terrorist Islamic group operating. With this, let's take up the next news article now. Now, this article on page number 12 is related to the recommendations of a committee that was set up by the Education Ministry regarding the reservation in the IITs for the faculty members as well as the students. Now, this aspect has been covered in the DNS of 17th December 2020, that is very recently. And all the aspects that have been discussed in this article have already been discussed in this particular DNS video. So do go through this video and try and learn about the issue of reservation for faculties in the IITs. With this, we conclude today's discussion, and these are the answers for the self-assessment test. And after that, let us look at the question for the day.